What's going on, my Central Unit? Is the Central Man here, back again with another classic WWE pay-per-view revisited review. That's right, pay-per-view revisited review. Yep, I'm revisiting and reviewing SummerSlam 2000. Yep, I reviewed that show 5 years ago. This show was at the Raleigh Entertainment and Sports Arena. Right now it's called the Lenovo Center in our current timeline. On the 27th of August 2000, the attendance of the show was 18,128. SummerSlam 2000 drew about 570,000 pay-per-view buys. A good buy rate, yeah, is a bit of a drop-off in the previous two SummerSlam shows of the late 90s from 1998 and 1999. Those shows drew about 600,000, 700,000 pay-per-view buys, but anyway, this show is still drawn a good, decent buy rate. Anyway, so the commentators for SummerSlam 2000, we got JR and the King. JR is short for Jim Ross, if you live under A-Rock, not The Rock. So yeah, this show is memorable for many things. One, it's the first SummerSlam of the new millennium, the 2000s, whatever you call of that decade. TLC 1, the triple threat match for the World Wrestling Federation Championship. I'll get to that later on. That was revolved around the biggest storyline of that year, the Love Triangle storyline. Yeah, I think that's it. And the 2 out of 3 pinfall match. And also, I forgot I mentioned in the Hardcore Title match, more of that later on, with known for that spot. You know, like I said, I'll get to more of that later on. And by the way, yeah, like I said, I reviewed this show 5 years ago in 2020. It was on StreamYard, and because in the short period of time, ever since I started, reviewing classic WWE shows, like in the because I've been because I mostly do it on like video making apps. But like in that short period of time, I mostly just review it on StreamYard, and I decided to stop doing that. It's more time. If if I messed up, I'll start again. And but in StreamYard, if you messed up, if you like slip up, you slip up. But anyway, so. I can't remember what I say 5 years ago, and I'm just revisited and make a new review of this show. So anyway, so let's talk about the show, SummerSlam 2000. And by the way, this show took place a month after Bash at the Beach. I did review that show last time on this channel, so that was on WCW side. This time, let's travel what the Federation doing in the same year, in the year 2000. So yeah, so the first match to kick off SummerSlam 2000, we got a 6-man tag team match. We got Too Cool taking on the Right to Censor, or RTC for short. Too Cool, we got Rikishi, Grandmaster Sexay, and Scotty 2 Hotty. Right to Censor is the team of Steven Richards, aka Steven Richards, Bull Buchanan, and the he's formerly known as the Godfather. He's now the Good Father. I'll get to more of that shortly. So, Right to Censor was formed a month prior. It's basically a parody of the Parents TV Council. Because the PTC is basically breathing down the Federation's necks because they despise of WWF's edgy Attitude Era content. They basically kind of write the letters to the advertisers to pull the advertisers from WWF programming. And also, I done more research of it. They were about to trying to kick SmackDown off of UPN, and it was kind of working. So what the WWF do, WWF right now it's WWE, by the way. So for WWF, what they do, they kind of listen to the PTC, and they slowly toning down their content. So, by the way, Val Venus used to be the porn star is no longer the porn star. He was doing the whole serious gimmick, we'll get to more foul finish later on. The Godfather, by the way, lost a match to Bull Buchanan to have no choice to join Right to Censor. He's no longer the pimp. There was a massive campaign of Save the Hose, more of that shortly. And also DX is no longer, edgy and crude. Not much about DX. I'll get to that later on. So yeah, it's kind of like a big campaign, for PT. I think the PTC kind of like, you could say they're winning, but this is leading up to a court case the following year. I think it was set out of court, and then Right to Censor end up disbanding. That's another story for another time. So Foul Finish is no longer a porn star. The Godfather is no longer a pimp. He's now the good father. Before the start of this match, you had Steven Richards. He kind of like trashing the fans instead of cheering support. Yeah, he kind of bashed the fans, saying like, instead of supporting us, you choose to boo us. And then he got cut out or interrupted by the music by Too Cool. The match was kind of fun. It's funny for Bull Buchanan. Last time I reviewed him in a match, he was the big boss man's lackey. Boss man is now injured, so he's now part of Right to Censor. Anyway, so yeah, it was a short and simple match. Everyone got their moments in. Like Rikishi was going for trying to stink face. I think it was Stevie. Yeah, I think it was the Goodfather or Steven Richards. But he got cut off by Bull Buchanan with the scissor kick, trying to keep it short and simple. The one moment of the match, I'm trying to do in a random order instead of the correct order. You had the Goodfather pie facing his former hoes. One of them is Lisa Marie Ferran, who will soon become Victoria. Anyway, they kind of like, he kind of pie faced the hoes. Anyway, Sky Too High was going for the worm. Steven Richards hit the Stevie kick onto Scotty Too Hotty while he's trying to perform the worm to score the victory. Yeah, it's not going to be an instant classic. They kept it short, keep it sweet. Not like an all-time classic Summerslam opener, but it was fun to really get this new heel faction over. And everyone looked good in this match. So let's move on to the next match. So the next match, this is a battle of two members of D-Generation X, or kind of shortly. It's kind of confusing and complex. Anyway, so we got the Road Dogg, Jesse James taking on X-Pac. Because at this moment in time, DX is just basically, like I said, due to the the PTC, WWF, like I said, toning down their products like a bit, because DX is no longer edgy and cruel and vulgar. Look, at the time, it's just two people at this moment in time, because it was like the start of the year was basically 4, Triple H, The Outlaws, Billy Gunn and Road Dogg and X-Pac, and you could say Tori was part of that group, but instead, because Tori was end up becoming a ninja. After that, that's another story, another time. The group's kind of like slowly, I don't think it slowly faded away. We'll get to more of that later on. But anyway, so because Triple H is more focused on slotting into that world title main event picture. Billy Gunn is still recovering from shoulder injury, so it's just Road Dogg and X-Pac. They kind of like, this is self-proclaimed friendly competition. They're kind of like arguing, like. I think a lot of losing matches, you had X-Pac, headbutt Road Dogg off the ring apron and through the table, and then on SmackDown, I think it was on the Go Home SmackDown, you had it was a handicap match, he kind of betrayed X-Pac. I'm talking about Road Dogg, and X-Pac kind of eat the last ride by the Undertaker. So the match wasn't terrible. This felt like a TV match, but not on a pay-per-view. This is supposed to be one of the biggest pay-per-views of the year for the company, one of the big 5 at the time. But it wasn't a bad match. It was just kind of there, like shtick, like I think one more of the match, like X-Pac was going for the Bronco Buster, the Road Dogg, got out of the way. I think they're teasing their finishers, hit like Road Dogg hit X-Pac managed to hit the Bronco Buster onto the dog. Road Dogg did like that the jiving knee to the face of X-Pac, In the end, he was going for the pot handle slam, but X-Pac countered it. Low blow, Road Dogg hit the X Factor for the win. Afterwards, he's on the mic, says no hard feelings, I'm the better man, blah blah blah. He didn't really say blah blah blah, but anyway, so Road Dogg had none of that. Look, I think he attacked X-Pac, hit the pot handle slam, and that was it. Yeah, that was the beginning of the end of DX because it was the beginning of the end of D-Generation X. The one Triple H formed. That was like late 1999, early 2000. Because, like I said, Triple H is in the world title picture. Billy Gunn is still recovering from shoulder injury. Rotator cuff surgery. So yeah, I don't think the group has officially broke up. I think it was just faded away, for the best, man. I think the DX stuff, the whole DX has completely run its course because DX has been around for 3 years. When Triple H, Shawn Michaels, and Chyna formed it in '97, and then the second version of DX in 1998, and then the final version of that group in 99, 2000. And DX won't be formed again until 2006. That's another story for another time, because after that, X-Pac was feuding with Chris Jericho, teaming up with Just Incredible to form X Factor, and Road Dogg, Jesse James ended up forming this tag team, a short-lived tag team with K-Quick. That is Ron the Truth Killings, or R-Truth. Anyway, let's move on to the next match. So the next match, this is match number 3. So match number 3, this is a mixed tag team match for the Intercontinental Championship. So we got Val Venis teaming up with Trish Stratus, and Val Venis defending the Intercontinental title against Chyna and Eddie Guerrero. So this is on a SmackDown. You had Trish kind of like smashing. I think it was a Vase. Yeah, I think it was a Vase right over Chyna's head, and then went to, at the time, the commissioner of the company, Mick Foley, to arrange this match. And one sugar on top of this match, the Intercontinental title is on the line. I'm guessing like Trish and Val's like gone into Chyna and Eddie's business. Anyway, so yeah. The match, it's because at the time Chyna and Eddie Guerrero was doing the whole Mamacita thing. People compare that to Rhea Ripley and Dominic Mysterio when they were part of the Judgment Day. Anyway, so the match itself was a good match. It wasn't a shit match. It was okay. I'm not saying it was an instant classic. One of the best matches of all time. But I think it was a fun mixed tag team match. Because at this moment in time, Trish was not the ring general she would become in later years into the Ruthless Aggression era and right now. But she was kind of like, she kind of started her run in the WWF as a valet, managing Tess and Albert, TNA, not TNA the company, but the tag team of Tess and Albert. She was kind of feuding with Lita, trying to transmit into the ring, but she's not quite kind of there yet. So a break of the rivalry between Trish and Leah. Now she's facing another veteran. Actually, Leah was not really a veteran. She kind of debuted the same year as like Trish, but she's facing like the ring veteran of Chyna, because Chyna's been in the company for like 3 years at this moment point. Anyway, so yeah, I think like with Val and Eddie and Chyna kind of carried Trish to a passable match. They're kind of like more experienced in the ring than Trish. Val was the Intercontinental Champion. He won the title. I think it was on Raw and SmackDown. from Rikishi. They had that match at the final fully loaded. He was no longer, like I said, he's no longer the porn star due to the vet of PTC. So he's serious right now. He's got a haircut, wearing white. He's the serious Val Venus at this moment in time. That never lasts long. I'll get to more of that shortly. Anyway, so the match was good. I think everyone had the moments. Eddie, China, and Val, like I said, carried Trish to a possible match. Trish had some offense, kicking Eddie in the ribs. Like I said, she is still green, not quite the ring general. The ring performance she will become in later years. Anyway, to the current timeline. But anyway, so in the end, China just basically gorilla pressed Trish and pin her for the win after I think Val was going for trying to go for a distraction. I think Eddie pulled Val out of the ring. China not just won this match, she became the Intercontinental Champion for the second time. I think I said it in my review of Survivor Series 99 or Armageddon 99. One of them said China is first of 3. It's actually first of 2. But China winning the Intercontinental title, it was a good moment. But I think, why they put the Intercontinental title on the line in a mixed tag team match? I think it'd be okay if China beats Val Venus and set up Val Venus China for the Intercontinental title down the road, probably at the next pay-per-view. But it's just kind of nah, why they did that, and for Val Venus, man, I feel he ended up joining Right to Censor, later on in the year, and also they added Ivory into that group, but I forgot to mention that. But I feel it's a head-scratching decision why they did that, because Eddie's not really you thought Eddie's going to turn on China and win the title for himself, or Trish, win it, also betraying Val to win the title. This is very confusing. I wish they just didn't put the put the title on the line. Just do a normal mixed tag team match. I think it doesn't really need to have the IC title on the line. By the way, it's the first of 4 championship matches on the night, but it's just. But this is going to be the beginning of the end of China and Eddie Guerrero as an on-screen couple, because a week later, Eddie beat China for the Intercontinental Championship in a triple threat match, and this is leading up to Eddie turned on China, or cheated on China because of the Godfather's hose, that's Victoria. Because if you don't, let me remind you, note that China, Joni Lauer kind of got Lisa Marie Ferran into the wrestling business, because Victoria said in interviews that she got into wrestling because of China. And this will revolve around the Intercontinental Championship. So, let's move on, man. I'm not saying it was a bad match. It was a fun mixed tag team match, but it was better off without the Intercontinental Championship stipulation. So let's move on to the next match. So the next match, this is revolve around an active wrestler and a wrestler / commentator. So we got Taz taking on Jerry the King Lawler. Holy fuck. How the fuck has Taz fallen? I'll get to more of that shortly. So he came back from injury. I think he came back from injury, turned heel, during his day offs, won the ECW title from Mike Awesome. I think he dropped the title not too long after that. So he turned heel, and he's now starting a feud with the commentators, starting the feud with JR and the King. Because JR's basically called Taz a piece of garbage on commentary. That pissed off Taz, and Taz kind of really berating JR and the King. I think they called him Taz called Jim Ross and Jerry the King Lawler redneck garbage because they're from the southern states of America, because Jerry's from Memphis, JR's from Oklahoma. Taz kind of egging he make JR to slap him. JR slapped him. He kind of egged him on to do it again, but instead Jerry kind of sucker punched Taz to defend his honor of JR, because at this moment in time Jerry was a heel since he debuted in the company, and now he's now a babyface. At this moment in time he ended up becoming a tweener. He'll soon become a babyface after that, you know. So for weeks now, Taz attacking mostly Jerry the King Lawler, because locking him with the Taz mission. I think he hit him with the some kind of blunt object, you know. They're fighting in a food warehouse of an arena. And also, you know, I think it was on the Go Home Raw, not the Go Home Raw, on the Go Home SmackDown. It was on SmackDown. You had Taz graffiti the rental car with JR in it, and smashed the car window in JR's face. And JR's like eyes, like not messed up. He got like all cuts and got a black eye. He didn't got hit in the face with the bat. It's just the car. He got smashed. You know, the car window kind of went through his eye. Anyway, and before the start of this match, you know, this is more entertaining than the actual match itself. You had Taz wearing his traditional sunglasses, wearing the cowboy hat with the Taz logo, and a walking stick. It's basically mocking JR with his eye injury, so that was more entertaining. And then Jerry, you know, Lawless, like sucker punch or cheap shot Taz, and then the match starts in the ring. No, it wasn't really a bad match. It was just basically, you know, Lawler was a bit one-dimensional. You know, he does he drop kick Taz. He did his traditional like punches, you know, off the top rope. You know, the flying punch off the top rope. You know, yeah, Taz basically like taunting towards JR. You know, this is your boy. This is your boy. You kill him rednecks. You know, because I think Taz is he's a northerner in America. You know, I think it's from New York. And then, you know, you like I said, JR and the King's from the Southern States in America. So, Lawler hit the Lawler hit the not the tombstone, but he hit like the power drive onto Taz. Taz no sells the power driver. He kind of shouted, "Fuck you." He kind of, when I watched it on Netflix, by the way, this show, for the preparation of this revisited review of SummerSlam 2000, you know, they kind of blipped it out. So, yeah, Taz said, "Fuck you" to Jerry the King Lawler. There was a referee bump. Now, the referee in this match was Teddy Long, holla, holla, holla player. This is years before he ended up becoming a manager and SmackDown general so, yeah, a manager and SmackDown GM. And that was later years in his run with the company. So afterwards, yeah, in the end, you had Taz once again taunting towards JR. He kind of friend JR, says, "Once I choke him out, I'll come for you." So Taz locked in the Taz mission onto Jerry the King Lawler. JR came out of his commentary table and smashed the candy jar onto the head of Taz. Lawler pins Taz for the win. Wow, how Taz has fallen from grace. From in January, he made his debut with the company at the Royal Rumble, choking out Kurt Angle. And fast forward a few months later, in SummerSlam 2000 in August, he's losing to a wrestler / part-time wrestler / color commentator, Jerry the King Lawler. It's basically, I think there was like Taz has a reputation backstage because some workers hate Taz because he was stiff. You know, he's like, they don't like his suplex. You know, I don't want to get into that. You know, it's set up like Taz becoming a commentator in years later, but wow, it set up a rematch at Unforgiven, lead up to the debut of Raven. You know, that helped Taz get his win back. But yeah, Taz is falling off. Taz is just basically an aftermath. You know, I think like Taz, I think he came to the company when the top spots are taken. You know, if Taz came back, if Taz debuted years later or years before this, maybe things might work out for Taz. So, but let's move on to the next match. The next match, yep, we got the hardcore match, the hardcore title match. So, yep, we got the hardcore title match. Yeah, you got Shane McMahon, or Shane O'Mac for short, defending the hardcore title against Steve Blackman. So this was no build to this, because at the time Shane was forming his own short-lived faction called the Conspiracy. I think it had Kurt Angle, Benoit, Edge and Christian in that group, on Raw, I think it was on a Go Home Raw, a Raw before this show, you had Shane defeat Steve Blackman to win the hardcore title, and then after that, I think Edge and Christian was about to pin Shane McMahon, but instead Commissioner Mick Foley suspend the 24/7 rule after, this was after SummerSlam. Yeah, it's basically teaching Shane a lesson. So to set up this rematch on this show. Before this match, there was 2 segments on the show. When you had Michael Cole and future ring announcer Lillian Garcia interviewing Shane McMahon, and then suddenly you had Steve Blackman, grabbing the weapons and trying to chase Shane with it. So the match between Shane McMahon and Steve Blackman, this was a fun match. Even though Shane's not known for his ring abilities, he's a really, he's known for doing, competing he's a weapons hardcore wrestler. He's known for doing the crazy spots. The weapon based matches. You had one more of the match. I think you had one more of the match. You had it's funny. You had Blackman throwing Shane the candlestick, and Shane throwing it back to him, and then he kind of grabbed the candlestick. Steve Blackman's turning his back away, and then he's really planting this. He's trying to make Shane trying to hit him with the candlestick. He grabbed the candlestick. You had Blackman guys shots with it. He kind of placed a trash can onto Shane McMahon's head with the instrument sticks, the 2 double sticks. There was a spot with I think it was some kind of sign. I don't think it's a stop sign, probably some kind of sign. I think it was I don't know what sign. Anyway, out comes TNA, that's Tess and Albert, trying to help Shane. You got fans chanted Shane is a pussy chant in this match, helping Shane. I think there was a belt. Anyway, you had Blackman fought off, Shane's cronies, they kind of drag Blackman into the entranceway, and Blackman fend off against Test and Albert, Yep, they were climbing on the Titantron. Steve Blackman whacking Shane with the candlestick. And this is memorable for Shane's crazy bump. Blackman's hitting Shane with the candlestick. Shane fell off the side of the Titantron, and Steve Blackman did that elbow off the on. It's not really a Titantron. It's basically the scaffold of the pay-per-view set. It's the screen scaffold part. I meant to say. So he did Blackman did the diving elbow off of Shane after he took that crazy bump, pinned Shane, and regained the hardcore title. It's the most memorable spot of the show, and they kind of recreate this spot a year later in the match between Shane McMahon versus The Big Show at Backlash 2001. So yeah, it was good. It was a good hardcore match. Not classic, but it was a way. It was basically, it was just kind of Shane wins the title, and Blackman gets his title back, and they kind of resume the 24/7 rule after the show. I think at the time, Shane was not really, he's not. I think he's trying to earn his stripes, and that was part of the methodology of Shane McMahon's matches to his first run in the company, to his second run in the company, doing these crazy ass bumps, I call him a daredevil wrestler, man. Him and Jeff Hardy are daredevil wrestlers, because they take crazy bumps and spots. Anyway, let's move on to the next match. So the next match, this is, not for a title. This is a continuation of their rivalry. We got Chris Jericho taking on Chris Benoit. It's a continuation of their rivalry. It started, you could say it started at WrestleMania 16 in the Euro Continental title match. The triple threat Euro Continental title match. They traded back and forth for the Intercontinental Championship. They fought at Backlash. They fought at Judgment Day. This match is basically the Empire Strikes Back. Gets more of that shortly. So, really, it's funny that they were in WCW. I don't think they ever wrestled in WCW because their paths are completely different. Because Jericho was in the Cruiserweight division. Benoit was part of the Four Horsemen. He was kind of like in this United in the mid card, like in the TV US title picture. So, but I think it was a good idea. Everyone knows Benoit and Jericho are best friends. Until I think Jericho's podcast years later about should Chris Benoit be inducted in the WWE Hall of Fame. Don't want to get into that. That's another story, another time. Go watch it on YouTube. But anyway, so the match is a 2 out of 4 pinfall match. And also I think it was you had on the video package. You had Benoit like trapping Jericho onto the garage door or the garage door for you Americans. We call it garage. You call it garage door. Onto the trapping Jericho's legs. I think like Benoit whacked Jericho in the face with the chair, made him bleed from the, I think it was the nose or the mouth, and then Jericho did the this is on SmackDown. He did a rhyming promo. He said, "I will fight Chris Benoit." He said he's gonna fight Chris Benoit on a goat. When the score is tied, when he's a bride. We'll see. Trying to remember the promo. On a goat, on a boat. When the score is tied. When he's a blushing bride. Oh yeah, when he's taking a quiz, and he is a jackass. What he is. When he's a jackass, what he is. I can't remember the way to say. He called him a jackass as he is. Oh yeah, when he's a jackass as he is. That's a good rhyming for Jericho. So. I'm going to keep it short and simple. Benoit scored the first pinfall, making Jericho tap out with the crossface, and then Jericho equalized, made it 1-1 when making Benoit tapped out with the Lion Tamer. It's funny why during those pinfalls, the music play and the referee are raising the opponent's arm. I think they stopped doing that. If you watch the 2 out of 3 pinfall match, they end up raising the victorious wrestler's arm in the air after the match. Anyway, so it was a really good match. I checked it. It's about 13 minutes long, but for me, I think it was about 20-25 minutes. But Benoit working on the injured shoulder of Jericho. I think he injured it. I think he was selling the fats because of the crossface. Because I think he ended up not just. I think you could do things. I think it's when you're locking the crossface, you can end up injuring the shoulder or the neck. Because when you're hurting your neck, you end up feeling the shoulder. Jericho hit Benoit with the I think it was the Hurricanrana off the top rope and the Lion Moonsault. But selling the shoulder. In the end, Jericho was going for the pinfall, but Benoit countered it. He countered it. He rolled him up while holding the ropes. Well, the referee noticing to score the second pinfall to win this 2 out of 3 pinfall match. The funny part, the referee trying to raise Benoit's arm in victory. Benoit just had none of it. Get the fuck off of me. He didn't really say that. He's basically it's funny heels or anti-heroes. They don't get their arms raised up in victory. It's just what it is, man. So Benoit smiling, and that. You thought that was the end of the rivalry because it's not. This is basically, like I said, this is basically the Empire Strikes Back in this rivalry. Like I said, the fight in that 2. Actually, if you could say. No, they fought in that Euro-Continental triple threat match at WrestleMania 16. They fought at Judgment Day, Backlash, this show. They end up having the blow-off months later at the Royal Rumble in the ladder match. And then they end up teaming up, winning the tag team titles the following year. You know, it's another chapter of their rivalry / partnership. Like because of Benoit and Jericho, they never have a bad match. So let's move on to the third championship match of the night. And by the way, this video might be like after August. My apologies because didn't have enough time of reviewing any SummerSlam shows throughout the whole month of August, so I was kind of busy, so I forgot to mention that. So anyway, let's move on to the first TLC match. That's match number 6. Yep, this is for the WWF Tag Team Championships. Edge and Christian defending the belts against the Hardy Boys and the Dudley Boys. They had that really match that like tear the house down in that triangle ladder match at WrestleMania 16 in March. So this time around they upped the ante to do this new. It is a ladder match, but they upped the ante, introducing ladders and chairs to form the TLC match, because the Hardys with the ladders, the Dudleys with the tables, Edge and Christian, they start doing the crescendos. I think they did it on Jeff Hardy. Head while he's standing. Most of the time, if you see a crescendo shot, they mostly do it on the ground when the person's in the ring. They do it in the ring instead of standing up. But anyway, so yeah, this match is like the triangle ladder match at WrestleMania 16. Is match of the night. There's too much spots to cover, but I'm going to keep it get to the key moments of this match. Keep it short and simple. Anyway, so you had, I think Edge did a Russian leg sweep off the ladders on both. I think it was one of the Hardy Boys, and maybe it was on Devon. And then minutes later, I'm doing it in a random order. Anyway, I feel like one did I think Christian or Matt Hardy. One did I think it was a reverse DDT or the twist of fate off one side of the ladder. And I think Edge did a face planter onto Devon onto the other side of the ladder. Jeff Hardy did I think he did the Swanton Bomb, trying to Swanton Bomb Bubba Ray off the Jeff Hardy tallest ladder, but he got out of the way at the last minute. He crashed into the table. They're really using the stipulation, using these the objects in its full potential of this match. Anyway, so yeah, Lita got involved. No Spike on this. You thought the Spike probably trying to help the Dudleys win this match. You had Bubba Ray went through the two the piles of tables. It's funny. It's just funny that I reviewed SummerSlam 2025 in night 2. They did their TLC. It's a good callback to that. Because even because this year it's the 25th anniversary of the TLC match. It's cool. Anyway, so yeah, Lita. Because at the time not booked on the show, forgot to mention. So I think she just recently won the women's title from Stephanie McMahon. Helping the Hardys. By the way, the show is in North Carolina. Helping the hometown boys, even though they're from Cameron, that's another part of North Carolina to help them win. I think they pushed the I think it was Edge and Christian. I think maybe the Dudleys, but I think it was Edge and Christian. Anyway, I think Matt went through. Yeah, Matt went through a table, on the side of the ring, or at ringside. I think it was on the left hand side or the right hand side. I think it was on the left hand side, vice versa. But anyway, so Edge hit the spear onto Lita, and Lita was selling the head. Edge kind of speared Lita onto the concrete floor. Yeah, Jeff and Devon fighting on. It was like these hooks, where they put the belts on. And they were fighting. I think Devon said in interviews that he's very afraid of. He's so scared of heights. So I think Jeff kicked him off. ENC knocked Jeff off. with the ladder, climb the ladder, grab the titles. So it's funny that, in hindsight, in TLC 2, they did a spot when Edge spear Jeff Hardy off the ladder. That would be. I might do a revisited review of WrestleMania 17 next year. Who knows? Fingers crossed. But anyway, so Edge and Christian grab the ladder, climb the ladder, and retain the tag team titles. I think I said in my review, or my revisited review of WrestleMania 16, that there was unpredictability. I think people, maybe they don't know who's going to walk out of, who's going to win the first TLC match. Similar to the Triangle Ladder match. Who's going to win? I think this time around, I think people want to see the Hardys winning, because this is in North Carolina. It's a shame they should have won it, because it'll get a good part if the Hardys won. Because Edge and Christian won the Triangle Ladder match. It's funny, like the Hardys won the Terry Invitational Ladder match at No Mercy 99. Like I said, ENC won the Triangle Ladder match at WrestleMania 16, and now they just won the first TLC match, and they're gonna went on to win TLC 2 the following year. So yeah, I think they're trying to. Yeah, I think they want to keep the belt onto Edge and Christian, because they were getting over at the time. In a character standpoint, I think their characters were based on figures based on Wayne's World and maybe Bill and Ted. Because they're over, but because they're doing, they're doing the 5-second pose. They're doing the kazoos. They're getting over. It's funny that they end up like in these the 5 people in this match will go on to win world championships, not just in the not just in this company, the WWF/WWE, but in Bully Ray's ascent, because Bully Ray went on to win the TNA World Title in TNA. So anyway, it was a really good match. They stole the show. They stole the show at WrestleMania 16. Now they stole the show for SummerSlam 2000. So so let's move on to the next match. So this match is basically a cooling down period, because of you had the hardcore title match when Shane took that bump, the 2 out of 3 pinfall match between Chris Jericho and Chris Benoit, the 2 Chris's, and then we just had the TLC match. Now we got the bikini stink face match. The Cat taking on Terry Runnels with Al Snow and the European champion Perry Saturn in their corners. It was basically no build to this. I'm guessing Terry got stink faced by Rikishi, and then you got Terry beat down the Cat. I think it was on WWE or WWF Times Square to give her version of the stink face. So this is the reason why they're doing this match on the show. By the way, Al Snow and Perry Saturn do nothing. Just basically, they did interact, I think like because Perry Saturn and Terry were kind of like on-screen couple at the time. I think he kind of picked up Terry on his shoulders, about to leave. Instead, I think Al stopped him, trying to put Terry back into the ring. I'm trying to keep it short and simple. In the end, you had the Cat hit Terry Runnels with head, hit her stink face for the win. And it got me thinking, where's Right to Censor, for fuck's sake? Their gimmick is basically they hate something like, crash and edgy and discriminated. They should be on this show. It's funny in hindsight, the Cat will end up joining Right to Censor in her final final weeks in her run in the company. So, but I wish they utilized Right to Censor for this match. But like I say, it's just a cooling off point. I wish they cut this match off they should have took this match off the show, man, because they don't really need women's on the show, because you had Chyna and Trish Stratus wrestled in that mixed tag team match, Anyway, so let's move on to the next match. So the next match, we got The Undertaker versus Kane. No build to this. Originally, it was supposed to be Undertaker versus The Big Show. You had Big Show. I think Kane choked. Big Show came back, lined himself with Shane McMahon once again. His 4,000 heel turn, I don't want to get into that. So after they just had that match at Backlash, Big Show choke slam. I think a choke slam came through the stage floor. And then, you know, because at the time, I forgot to mention, Big Show was part of Shane McMahon's short-term stable faction, whatever you call it, called the Conspiracy. But you had Undertaker throw Big Show off the stage. It's the way to run off the Big Show, because Big Show is because at the moment in time he's off of WWF programming because he was sent down to OVW for more conditioning work and get his mind in the business, because he got a reputation of being, you know, he's got like a poor attitude. So you won't see the Big Show again until making his return at the Royal Rumble the following year. So Kane came back, saving the Undertaker after a beat down by Chris Benoit. Benoit locked Undertaker with the crossface. Kane, you thought he came to his brother's aid. Psych! Attacked the Undertaker, choke slam him through the ring canvas. He basically went on the mic, says, "The reason why I attacked my brother because I am a monster," and that was it. I'm gonna keep it short and simple, folks. It's nothing much to talk about. You know, this is the worst match of the night. You know, it's just basically punch, 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 punch. Do I mention punch, punch, punch? And just mostly Undertaker trying to rip off the mask of Kane. I think they used the steel steps. You know, the match ended in a non-contest, and you see slightly the face of Kane. This is, by the way, this is 3 weeks, not 3 weeks. This is 3 years before the Kane officially unmasked. You know, seeing slight the flash of Kane. You know, Kane without the mask. You know, I feel that if this match was successful, would they do it earlier than 2003? It's hard to say. So, but it was just like waste of time. I was completely bored about this. So bored. You know, you thought there's going to be, you know, like two guys fighting back and forth, like brawl, but instead, I think like it was fucking one-sided. It just made Kane like a pussy, a chump. You know, seeing Kane, you know, he's bleeding after he got hit in the face with the steel steps. You know, you thought like similar to Abyss. You know, once he see the drop of blood, he snapped. But nope. I don't think this rival went anywhere. And by the way, this was the last time. This was the last time they faced one-on-one until WrestleMania 20, when Undertaker came back as the Dead Man after Kane helping Mr. McMahon burn the Undertaker at Survivor Series 2003. So yeah, waste of time. It got me thinking. Would it be much better if they had the Big Show versus the Undertaker? I don't know. I'm not doing this on fantasy booking thing. But Ocean they did that. Why could they just have Undertaker beating the fuck out of the Big Show? Make it it's basically, this match is basically an angle disguised as a match. You could have Undertaker beating down the Big Show, chokeslam off the stage. Ending a non-contest. It'll be a fine way to ruin off the Big Show, and then he gets sent down to OVW. But nope, no build, no heat. And I think they fought next. They kind of interrupt one more time they had to compete in the Fatal 4-Way match, and don't forget, for the WWF Championship. And then after that, they just basically moved on to separate things, separate ways. Anyway, let's move on to the main event. So the main event, this is for the World Wrestling. This is a triple threat match for the World Wrestling Federation Championship. The Rock, the People's Champ, defending the belt against Triple H and Kurt Angle. This is revolved around the biggest storyline of the year so far, this love triangle storyline between Kurt Angle, Triple H, and Stephanie McMahon, because Triple H and Stephanie are the on-screen couple. They're soon to be a real-life couple in real life, but they were at the time an on-screen couple. Stephanie and Angle are best friends, Triple H is paranoid because Angle's really snatching Stephanie away from him. And this was after, Stevie caught Triple H, because teaching Trish Stratus how to wrestle, some moves. You thought Triple H is having sex with Trish. And then By the way, Angle and Triple H won a triple threat match. You know, they became co-number 1 contenders after both pinning Chris Jericho on a Raw. And then they kind of like at each other's throats and like, you know, mutual respects, you know, being cordial, you know, against The Rock, you know. And also on the Go Home SmackDown, you know, you had, I think it was a handicap match, you know, you had Rock. I think he knocked Kurt Angle. I think he accidentally knocked, I think it was Kurt Angle. No, I think Rock accidentally knocked Stephanie McMahon off the ring apron. She hit her head onto the steel steps, you know. And then on the final moments of the final SmackDown before the show, Kurt Angle kissing Stephanie McMahon. They kind of build this throughout this show, you know, like talking about this, you know. And also before the start of this match, Angle went on the mic, says, "I should have kissed Stephanie sooner." And instead of the champion appeared, he appeared later on into this match. You had Triple H and Kurt Angle start this match. You know, they ended up brawling. Triple H was about to pedigree Angle through the announce desk, but instead the announce desk broke before Triple H hit the pedigree, and Angle whacked his head onto the concrete floor. And I never knew this back in 2020, but you know, looking back 5 years later for more information, you know, Angle whacked his head onto the concrete floor. He legitimately got concussed. And then, you know, Rock show up minutes later. You got the paramedics, you know, basically, you know, trying to put Kurt Angle on the stretcher, and then Triple H, you know, end up, you know, punching Angle more on the head, and then scoring out of they're trying to score him out of the ring, and then the whole bulk of the match is supposedly Rock and Triple H. You know, it's good because they had the right. It was more of a continuation of the rivalry between them, because they kind of they had a massive stranglehold of the World Wrestling Federation Championship belt throughout the spring and the summer of 2000. You know, they trade back and forth, you know, for the belts, you know, and they fought in that in the Fatal 4-Way match at WrestleMania 16. They fought at Backlash. They fought in the Iron Man match at Judgment Day. I think they fought in the 6-Pack Challenge at King of the Ring. This is another chapter of the rivalry between Triple H and The Rock, you know. And then, you know, minutes later, you know, Stephanie persuaded Kurt Angle to get back in the ring. He kind of escorted him back in the ring, Stephanie and Kurt Angle, you know. Kurt Angle is just dazed, he's not with it, you know. He kind of bust his ass to trying to be beat in this match, you know. I think he hit The Rock with a suplex. I think he hit Triple H with a suplex, you know. I can't remember this match, you know. Can't really remember, like, I think he did got involved a bit, you know. He hit, you know, Rock him with the DDT. Anyway, so it's mostly just more of this love triangle storyline, you know, like moments. I feel like Stephanie hit Triple H with the belt, and then minutes later, you know, like, this is the end of this match, by the way. And then, you know, Triple H accidentally hit Stephanie with the clothesline. Angle hit Triple H with the sledgehammer. Rock throw Angle out of the ring. Hits Triple H with the people's elbow for the win. And at the end, afterwards, you had like Kurt Angle pick up Stephanie McMahon, you know, carried him and leave the ring, and that was it. And wow, you know, because like I said, Kurt Angle was legitimately concussed, because he said in interviews that he couldn't remember about this match. You know, he gained his memory. I think he got slight amnesia after this. The only thing he remember. I think he kind of slightly remember after he woke up from hospital. So, and I think like Triple H, Ross, Stephanie kind of carry Angle for this. He was an autopilot, you know, tell him to do this spot and that spot. You know, wow. If it's in today's wrestling landscape, I think Angle will be forced to. They will never bring Angle back in this match. You know, this match will be the triple threat match. Will be a just basically a one-on-one match. You know, I think this match will be received more negatively. It's funny that, you know, like this one match. This is in the current timeline. This is recently in 2020. This was in AEW. This was a match. I think it was at All Out. I think. between Matt Hardy versus Sammy Guevara. Matt Hardy hit his head off the scaffold, and they continue this match, because I think Matt got literally concussed in that match. But yeah, it just shows that if they got concussed, in today's wrestling landscape during this match, they basically just forced them to leave this match, not come back. And yeah, but for Angle, I give him props. He wants to be there because one note that this is Kurt Angle's first world title match since he debuted in the company. Debuted in Survivor Series '99. This is his rookie year because he went on to win the Euro and Intercontinental Championship, becoming the third and final Euro, or was it third or fourth final Euro Continental Champion in the company's history. He went on to win the King of the Ring. Yeah, I think putting the belt on Angle is too soon, but yeah, I think Rock winning it was a good way to get the fans leave the home happy and give Rock that lengthy run, because Angle will get his moment in the sun later on in the year. He ended up beating The Rock at No Mercy in October, and also and a month later, Triple H and Angle had that match to really end this love triangle storyline. So yeah, I think give props to Angle. He ended up getting concussed 1 year later in his match against Shane McMahon. That's another story, another time. But shocking to me, this match was a bit rushed. It was a good match, but it's not on the same level as the 2 hour 3 pinfall match between the two Chris's and the TLC match. But for me, that's for me. Everyone has their title opinions, but I think for me personally, I think Angle got hurt. It kind of hurt it for me. But besides that, he kind of worked his socks off and make it into a really favorite part of this video. 5 years ago, I scored my original review of SummerSlam 2000 and give it a 6 out of 10. So, 5 years later, in 2025, my overall rating of my revisited review of SummerSlam 2000, I'm going to upgrade it and give it a 9.5 out of 10. This is a really good show. Before we get to more of this is the final time. I'm going to do the good, bad, and the okay in my format when I'm rating wrestling shows, whether it's reviewing in the current times or in the past. But anyway, so yeah, SummerSlam 2000. What a good show. Way better than WrestleMania 16 in March of that year. It was really fun to watch, I think the reason why I give it 6 out of 10, I thought it was kind of average, but that was the first time I watched that show. But yeah, and watching it back 5 years later, it's really good. A really good show. Not a lot of things in the bad. The only things I'm going to put in the bad is, Terry versus the Cat in the Stinkface match, or Stinkface Fong match, whatever you called it. Kane. I was supposed to put Jared King Lawler versus Taz in the okay. On second thought, I'm gonna put it in the bad. It's not to say the match was bad, then botches, but it's just logic. For that match. So for Taz, he no-sell Jared King Lawler's power driver, but got hit in the face by JR with the candy jar. But it just made Taz look bad. The things I put in the okay is the X-Pac versus Road Dogg match. It was just basically a TV match on a pay-per-view, no build. It was just basically the beginning of the end of DX, but the good is the good, The opener I put in the good. It was short, but it was fun to watch. The crowd were into it. I like the mixed tag team match, Eddie, China versus Val Venus and Trish Stratus, I like it. I don't like the, with the IC talent on the line. I don't want to get into that, but man, I think the 4 matches did stand out. I really like the hardcore title match between Shane McMahon versus Steve Blackman when Shane did that bum. the 2 out of 3 pinfall match between Chris Benoit and Chris Jericho. TLC 1 match of the night, and also I really like the triple threat match. You know, Rock, Angle, Triple H. So yeah, I was watching SummerSlam 2000. You know, it's a really good show. You know, and also this is the final pay-per-view without Stone Cold Steve Austin, because Austin will come back and find the culprit who run him over in November of the previous year. Before I end this video, I forgot to mention this. I'm going to tell you right now. Yeah, by the time this video is uploaded, you know, August and the summer is in our rearview mirrors. It's over. You know, we're in September now. I forgot to do this in the month of August, so I was a bit busy. My bad, my apologies, but at least I got a classic SummerSlam for this year, for 2025. So yeah, you know, stay tuned for later this week, and I might do a post, you know, for my upcoming videos for the month of September. But anyway, so what's your thoughts on SummerSlam 2000 and this video? Please leave your thoughts in the comment section below. Watch my original review of SummerSlam 2000 in the description below. Subscribe to the Central Man Network on YouTube. Be part of the Central Unit for more wrestling videos and more. Plus my other channel, Central Man Sports. And this is the Central Man officially signing out. Check you later.